So now let's talk about Sagittarius. Sagittarius are the buttocks. And the buttocks are actually the largest muscles in the body, and they're responsible for moving the body when we walk and run. Scientists have actually concluded that the one physical advantage that we have over other land animals are these large muscles, right? They allow us to travel longer distances than any other land creatures. Any animal can beat a human in short distances, but in those long, marathon type distances, a fit human can outrun any animal and cross more miles in a single day than any of these, land animals, right? So the one physical advantage that humans really have over land animals is this greatest proportion of butt muscle to body weight that gives us sort of the longest endurance of any land traveling creature. Of course, not including birds. Okay. Because how far can a horse run in one day? Well, maybe 100 miles, right? But then the next day it's gonna be probably drop dead, right? It's too much for a horse, right? The 24-hour record for a human is 165 miles. So humans have this great capacity for endurance, for this long-term motion that no other animal comes close to. And in fact, animals, they actually never really want to go more than 10 miles a day. It just doesn't enter into their brain, right? A horse is not gonna go 50 miles a day alone. Maybe it's gonna go that far when there's a person on top, right? But otherwise it just doesn't want to do that, right? Whereas a human, all on his own volition, might just do 100 miles a day. Now, of course, nowadays in society where everything has become so comfortable, and with all the technological advancement, people, they don't anymore do that. At least in a lot of countries. Of course, there's also countries where they might not have that advantage and they might still walk a lot. But previously, it wasn't uncommon that you just walk, let's say to school or to work for many, many miles every day. And a human being is capable of that more than any other land creature. So Sagittarius is the sign of long-term endurance, right? It's the body part suitable for long-term endurance. The muscles of the buttocks move our body in a certain direction, but at the same time, they give us this tremendous amount of endurance, right? I'm gonna go and do this no matter how long it takes. I just keep going because, that's what's important to me. This is my purpose. And this is what really makes Sagittarius the sign of purpose. And what is a purpose? It is a long-term goal, right? And it is Sagittarius that gives us the capacity to achieve a long-term goal. Sagittarius also rules the coccygeal vertebra of the tailbone, right? So the tailbone is part of the spine that is right at the bottom of our spine. And the purpose of a tail is to maintain balance, while moving. And in the human being, of course, the tailbone is very short, and it has no effect really on maintaining our physical balance. But it does symbolize the idea of balance, okay? The idea that it's important to act with balance. And what is it that allows us to maintain balance in life, right? So that we can always move forward in life. It's really the knowledge of the self and our purpose in life, right? When we consider our life as a journey towards, becoming our best version, then we can really see life as a school that teaches us, how to be really that best person that we want to be, okay? We see that everything happens for a higher reason, and We see everything as an opportunity to improve ourselves so we can be happier, okay? And Sagittarius is really balancing our actions, with this higher knowledge. And then we can always make progress in whatever it is that we are doing. So Sagittarius really sees that an idea is not really, it sees that a mistake is not really a mistake as long as you learn from it, right? And this is really what the tailbone of Sagittarius signifies, that every action has a reaction, but if I strive to be better every time and to learn from my mistakes, then I will get closer to the purpose of my life, right? I will not lose my balance and get off track and just get stuck somewhere along the way. And Sagittarius is that part of the body that gives us the capacity to understand that the result we're going to experience in our life is based on the purpose we pursue and the long-term journey that we undertake. And planets supporting Sagittarius, they really give us that endurance to pursue our purpose and learn all the lessons on the way, right? So that then in the end we can be successful. Now, luckily, Jupiter has no enemy, or Jupiter is actually no enemy to anybody. There's really no planets in Sagittarius that are starved. Of course, there's no planet exalted or debilitated in Sagittarius either. You can get bad planetary combinations there, or a planet, let's say, that gets sort of inimical aspects from other planets, but all by itself, there's no planet in Sagittarius that is actually a problem. So now the Sun, Jupiter, and Mars are actually going to do very well in Sagittarius. They are actually going to support a person have a long-term goal that they believe in, is what they need so that they can grow and fulfill their purpose. And if there are planets afflicted in Sagittarius, then a person is just gonna struggle with their belief of who they are and what the world is all about. They will struggle actually maintaining their long-term goals, and and they will just find it really, really hard actually to grow into a better person. So now let's talk about Capricorn. Capricorn is the thighs. The word that is used for thighs is Janu, which is actually often incorrectly translated as knees. Janu is a measurement of 32 angulas, which equals about 56.6 centimeters. Which is the length of a thigh in a grown-up person, okay? So it's definitely not the length of a knee. The knees actually are simply the junction between the thighs and the shanks. So when we look at the body, it would appear that the thighs are doing all the work, right? When we, move our body. But actually what is happening is, it is the muscles of the buttocks that are doing most of the work, right? The thighs feel the work and the pain. If you have gone on a 100-mile marathon and you come back and you walk up the stairs, it's the thighs that are gonna feel really painful, okay? And your butt is gonna feel still pretty good, right? The thighs are where we experience the pain and the hardship of our work. But the thighs are not actually doing as much work as the buttocks. But because they are much weaker and not as mechanically efficient, they get sore quicker. Now, if you think of a person who has no physical ailments or any sort of physical pains, they're still gonna experience pain in their thighs, if they use their body. It will be, the first place that they experience pain, right? They go on a hike and they run, and the legs will just get tired and there will be that pain in the thighs, right? So this is really the part that's designed to experience fatigue. And Saturn rules Capricorn and gets tired and needs rest. The good part about Capricorn is that it lets us know when it's time to rest, right? The thighs are that body part that lets us know when it's time to rest, right? If you don't know, if you're fatigued, just run up the stairs and then you will realize how your legs feel like, okay? So the thighs are what tells us when it's time to rest, and they're ruled by Saturn. Now, when we are talking about the knees, then there's an important distinction here. Because the upper part of the knee is ruled by Capricorn and the lower part is ruled by Aquarius, right? The knee is basically just the space between, it's basically just the space where two bones meet, right? The thigh bone of Capricorn and the shank of Aquarius, okay? And so the knee is where those two signs of Capricorn and Aquarius join, right? We don't really need a separate sign for that. We simply add the kneecap to the sign, okay? Half of the kneecap is Capricorn and the other half is Aquarius. Now, Capricorn and the thighs are the body part that lets us know when we've done a lot of hard days' work. I know I did all that because my thighs are sore, and so obviously I must have done it, right? And so this is the idea of Capricorn, is that, we think that we are the doer, right? We are working, and as a result, we are hurting there, right? So the idea that, we are doing the work is Capricorn. Why? Because we can feel that we did the work, right? So now let's talk a little bit more about some deeper concepts here of the horoscope. The signs actually of Saturn are opposite the signs of the South, which are Leo and Cancer, okay? So they are the furthest away in the horoscope from the signs of those, two luminous planets of the South. The idea is that when the pure self identifies with the ego mind, then it wants separation from its source through Cancer and being controlled through Leo. And all of a sudden we feel empty, but, powerful and capable, okay? And we look at the world, we have a vision, and, we have a need to find happiness here. And it's Capricorn that represents our need for security and building our world, and Aquarius our need for approval and finding the right people in our life. Now, the planet that is exalted in Capricorn to give us that security is Mars, right? Capricorn loves structure and stability, and Mars is responsible, ambitious, and hardworking. Right? Capricorn is about doing big things, and Mars is driven to succeed, okay? So this is an incredible combination to have, right? Mars in Capricorn loves to take on big tasks and see them all the way through to the finish. He just charges ahead, forcefully, impulsively. But with Capricorn structure and hierarchy, Mars has, an incredible direction as well, right? So he will push ahead, but then also operate really calmly and, very practically as well, right? So that he can really attain his goals. And so now Mars is really more powered than ever before to be successful in whatever it is that he does. And so whatever structures that you want to establish through Capricorn to create security and stability in your life, Mars is really the greatest asset to have there, right? Because of the focus, the work ethics, the perseverance. A person, would just be successful in anything that they put their mind towards, okay? And and so this is Mars in Capricorn really allows a person to just handle so much pain, hardship and opposition, right? And still just be, relentless in the way that they go about, pursuing their goals. And so, so Mars really brings out the best, or you could say Capricorn brings out the best out of Mars, and our ability really to build our security here in this world. Now Jupiter is debilitated in Capricorn. And when that happens, is a person actually considers that their purpose is to do great things in this world and to create material security. They feel that if their thighs are hurting, if they go through hardships, it's sort of the struggle to establish themselves in the world, that, they have fulfilled the purpose of their life. Of course, they miss the point that the fatigue in their muscles isn't actually what is doing most of the work, right? It's our buttocks that are doing most of the work, which is Sagittarius, right? But somehow when Jupiter goes into Capricorn, we think that all that matters is just doing things and working hard. Another thing that usually happens for people with this Jupiter placement, Jupiter is the planet that wants to create an ideal world for everyone to be happy. In Capricorn, the dog-eat-dog world, and Jupiter finds it difficult to really do that. And the reason is because, climbing up the success ladder is going to hurt other people, right? Jupiter wants to inspire others, motivate them, be kind, but it's just difficult in this harsh world of Capricorn, which is that of competition and, the struggle to survive. And so, Jupiter really struggles to adjust there to the fact that, you have to fight others, push them aside, and you can't just always please everyone. You need to be ruthless and selfish to a certain degree if you really want to rise to the top, if you really want to achieve your goals, right? And sometimes people with Jupiter and Capricorn, they just don't want to do this. In fact, they don't want to work anymore at all once they realize, the reality of life, right? For them, it's just too painful to harm others, to harm other living entities, to be cruel to nature, right? And so they might stop, being productive altogether, right? Because their mind is just so focused on this narrow concept of all the cruelty and the harsh realities that they lose sort of sight of the bigger picture. Now, Jupiter in Capricorn is debilitated and really struggles to find a sense of purpose, unless it's helped by, his friends Sun, Moon, and Mars. And, when Jupiter is helped, even though he's in Capricorn, he can actually perform very well. Okay, so don't be too quick to judge if you see Jupiter in Capricorn. And, you might say, oh, this person is just hardworking, or oh, this person, is very ruthless, or this very, very small-minded, okay? There's some very famous people actually with this combination, okay, that are very, very successful in this world, right? Jupiter was in 1984 for most part in Capricorn, and they produced some really successful people, okay? Now, interesting enough is there's actually a book called 1984 that's written by George Orwell, and that actually depicts sort of the dream world of a person with Jupiter in Capricorn. And the underlying theme of the book is that material security and comforts is all that we need. And, Jupiter in Capricorn can really go as far as creating an utopian world and turn this idea about, material happiness, into reality. Okay. let's remember that Jupiter is actually exalted in Cancer, showing that the greatest happiness for a human being really comes from the inside out, right? When the heart is happy, when we are calm and we are free from the shadow of all this unresolved trauma, when we can connect with other living entities, with a kind heart, with a soft heart, okay? But Jupiter and Capricorn can't really see much value in this type of philosophy. It finds happiness and purpose in practical matters, and it dreams about a world where everyone just has the same opportunity to live a good material life, right? Where everyone has sort of everything they need to survive, okay? But with this approach, the heart really remains empty, and we will lose our sense of purpose in what we are doing. All right? And that's why Jupiter's sense of purpose really needs to be connected to the heart. If it's just about doing something, then our purpose is very superficial and it actually won't last very long, right? Oh, I was born to be an astrologer. Well, guess what? There are many astrologers. There were astrologers before you, there will be after you, some will be better than you, then worse than you. So maybe you're not an astrologer after all, because there have already been astrologers before, right? And after, there will also be. Maybe I'm here to open a milk tea shop. Well, people are already doing it. And likely there will be people that are going to be a lot more successful than you. So maybe that's not your purpose either, right? So what is my purpose? Well, the purpose starts from the inside out, okay? And Elon Musk, of course, he famously said that when you need someone else to inspire you to do something, don't do it. So when we are connected to our true self, then we are inspired to express our talent in the world in a positive way, right? We know that, okay, this is who I am. There's only me who can do it this way. There will be better ones before me and after me. But hey, I have something special to give because I'm unique. And this is me, and so that's what I do, right? And a person with Jupiter and Capricorn needs to learn to get really in touch with their higher self, to develop higher values, right? So that they can intuitively feel their purpose and then do the hard work necessary to realize their greatest potential and ultimately really make a meaningful contribution in this world that actually makes this world a better and happier place.